We are all familiar with the numerous paintings by Giovanni Battista Piranesi, but modern historians explain his engravings with vivid fantasies of the author. Many viewers, however, have already realized that this artist and many others depicted exactly what they saw with their own eyes. The ruins of European cities destroyed in the middle of the 18th century. Naturally, many questions remain. Who were these artists? Where did they learn to draw, and where did they come from in these recently destroyed cities? What happened to the residents of these cities? How did the same ruin artists survive? My opinion is that the urban population was eradicated before the flood and was destroyed by the war. The artists who arrived here a few decades after the flood originally lived somewhere in the mountains, and therefore survived. Then they came to the ruins of the cities and later inhabited them. This is, of course, a rough hypothesis. I think that besides people like us, a completely different population, taller in stature, lived in these cities. According to researchers, the ruinists depicted the ruins only a couple of decades after the flood. The vegetation that had grown over the destroyed structures was very young. Researchers studying this matter consider it to be one of the pieces of evidence dating the flood to the early 18th century. In general, it seems we've unraveled the mystery of European artists. They weren't fantasizers. They painted what they saw. We've seen the consequences of the catastrophe in paintings, but the reasons for these devastations remain unclear. They continue to spark debates among researchers. It turns out that paintings capturing the global catastrophe itself have reached us, and according to my hypothesis, it occurred between the 17th and 18th centuries. It might seem fantastical, but take a look at the English artist Martin John. What's strange in the biography of this artist born at the end of the 17th century? Official historians of the English painter write that he earned a living by painting porcelain, but his dedicated work brought him worldwide fame and later oblivion. He was a favorite among certain elite circles, yet academic circles never valued his work and even conflicted with him. In general, academic circles attributed Martin John's creativity to fantastic romanticism on biblical subjects. In artistic circles, however, the painter became famous for his technique in depicting the apocalypse with intricate detail, down to the mood prevailing in the apocalyptic society. In the 19th century, prints of his engravings adorned the walls of rural houses and aristocrats' mansions. The culmination of the artist's creativity was the trilogy of 1853, The Great Day of His Wrath, The Last Judgment, and The Plains of Heaven. Engraved copies of these paintings supposedly sold well, but the original paintings themselves remained unwanted. That's what historians write. Presumably, these paintings were eventually bought in 1935, albeit for a couple of pounds. This famous artist may have been a fictional figure. Someone painted these paintings around 1935 or a little earlier, exactly imitating the engraved versions that were ubiquitous in the 19th century. So, where did these mass-produced prints come from? It seems quite simple. Before the global catastrophe of the 1840s, everyone knew about the worldwide flood that destroyed the previous ancient world, presumably depicted in engravings and paintings by Martin John. These engravings were most likely copies made from photographs taken in different parts of the world at the very moment of the disaster, created by those who survived it. Here is a vivid example, almost identical to the events described, the image of the elderly Catherine the Great at the funeral of Elizabeth Petrovna in Moscow. This historic event could not take place. At the time of Elizabeth Petrovna's death, Catherine the Great was still very young. But here we see an elderly woman. But let's go back to the assumption that these original prints were actually photographs. Of course, it sounds fantastic, but look for yourself. This is an artistically processed photo. And now let's try to analyze what exactly is depicted in these paintings of the apocalypse, which were hanging all over Europe in every house. The ruinists mainly depicted the ruins of Rome, which are well known from these engravings. There are, of course, paintings depicting structures resembling Egyptian ruins on the sand, but the ruins of Egypt are much rarer than the ruins of Rome described above. The first picture, what's on it? Something surprisingly similar to the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul or Constantinople, with three demons with wings throwing a huge stone into the city from above. Dense clouds cover the sun, and through these clouds the figures of people on horseback rush by. Lightning flashes while the winged warriors are sitting below, perhaps in between battles. This painting is far from photography. We can say that it is far even from the artistic style of this author. But in fact, this is really a painted apocalyptic narrative that fully reflects the essence of the disaster. So, genuine artistic photography, the quality and detail clearly resembles photography. A city with unknown architecture, reminiscent of Egypt, is visible below. By the river, a battle is raging. In the background, the explosion leaves a plume of dissipating smoke in the sky. Obviously, something huge flew past, leaving this trail behind. Further on the horizon, something collides with the surface of the earth, causing fires. The two towers in the background are intriguing. One, barely visible in the smoke, is huge, resembling a Babylonian structure with a round cross-section, the other slightly smaller, obviously with a rectangular cross-section. I wonder what kind of city it is, clearly not Rome. Perhaps Babylon or Egyptian Alexandria, or maybe some other city unknown to us today. Again, the same city with two towers, seemingly a palace. Ancient people saw something in the sky during a night feast. There were also some bright lightning bolts, much brighter than the moon. Clearly not a storm. An interesting row of spotlights on the left side under the roof caught my attention. It's as if the entire palace square is illuminated, resembling a stadium during a night festivity. I believe this marks the beginning of the apocalypse. This painting is obviously an artistic rendition of a photograph, and again, it's the same city. A battle rages below near a wide river, but it's hard to determine which river it is. Perhaps it's the river Euphrates near the ruins that are now called Babylon. However, today the river doesn't seem as wide. A lightning bolt pierces one of the towers, breaking through, while the sky itself is thick with smoke. Panic among the people suggests the city is under siege, most likely signaling the end of the feast. These lightning bolts are clearly some unknown weapons of today, presenting yet another strange ancient military reality. Lightning flashes in the sky, shattering towers, while people on the ground fight with bows and swords. But the answers to these questions are yet to be found. Here's another painting. Huge waves engulf the city. Judging by the bridge at the center named Aqueducto, the waves are already surging over the former land through the city quarters. Amidst a relentless downpour, a lightning bolt on the horizon appears as a usual storm. An intriguing boat rides the waves below, without sails or oars. It immediately brought to mind a model of Hyperborea I saw in an Indian temple, a genuine model. Similar boats flew over the Golden City, featuring the same rounded nose, carrying precisely to people to see their flying machines. And we see a similar boat in this painting, still afloat. But the noses of such boats are already overturned in the water. Could these flying machines have really fallen from the sky into the water? And then there's a painting where I recognized Constantinople. Apparently, these were the ancient Vedic temples known today as Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque. Look at the massive structures forming their lower floors. It seems that today in Istanbul, we only see the upper part of these immense structures, considering these upper parts as one blue mosque and the other as Hagia Sophia Cathedral. But what truly lies beneath these buildings today? Underground, there's both a pyramid and a structure next to it on the same level. And to the left of the painting is the lowland, today submerged under the sea. These are all the factors of the deluge, global tsunamis, and the rise in sea levels. In this painting, there is no sea, so it's impossible to conclude how low the levels were before the ancient flood based on these paintings. What lies before us, a real testimony or Martin John's imagination? Share your opinion in the comments. My name is Professor Aristotle. Like, subscribe to the channel, and until next time.